Welcome back to the 60-day Pentesting Challenge. Day 7. We have spent 6 days learning individual recon techniques. Today we chain them all together into a single, complete workflow. I am going to show you exactly how I run recon on an engagement, the order I follow, and the specific mistakes that trip up beginners. If you have been following along, this is where everything clicks. Let me start with something I see constantly. New pentesters fire up nmap as their first step. This is backwards for 2 reasons. First, port scanning is noisy, it generates logs on the target side. Second, if you have not mapped the full scope through passive means, you do not even know what to scan. The correct order is passive collection, then DNS enumeration, then web fingerprinting, and active scanning comes last. Each phase feeds the next. Passive OSINT gives you domain names and historical data. DNS expansion turns those into subdomains and IP addresses. Fingerprinting tells you what software is running. Only then do you scan specific ports on hosts you actually care about. So let us start with Phase 1, Passive Intelligence. We are pulling data from third-party sources with zero interaction with the target. First stop is certificate transparency logs. Every SSL certificate issued gets logged publicly. I run a curl command against crt.sh with the target domain, pipe it through JQ to extract the domain names, and sort them uniquely. On a real engagement against a mid-size company, this alone pulls 30 to 80 subdomains. Many of them are staging servers, development tools, or internal applications that the client forgot they registered certificates for. Next I hit the Wayback Machine using Wayback. This gives me every URL that has been historically archived for the target domain. But here is what most people miss: I do not just look at the URLs themselves. I extract the query parameters and analyze them. If I see parameters named redirect, file, path, or URL, those are potential injection points. If I see file extensions like .boc, .sql, or .log in the archive, those backup files might still be accessible. The Wayback Machine is telling you what the application used to look like, and developers rarely clean up old endpoints as thoroughly as they think. Phase 2 is DNS enumeration. I take all the hostnames from the passive phase and merge them into a seed list. Then I run subdomain brute forcing with FUF against a word list. I use the SEC list's top 5,000 subdomain list because it hits the sweet spot between coverage and speed. After brute forcing, I resolve everything with DNSX. This is important. Just because a subdomain exists in CT logs does not mean it currently resolves to anything. Some point to decommissioned servers, some point to internal IPs you cannot reach. I always attempt zone transfers against every name server too. Yes, they fail 95% of the time. But when they succeed, you get the entire DNS zone handed to you. One query per name server, negligible cost, potentially massive payoff. Phase 3, Technology Fingerprinting. I pipe all live hostnames through httpx with the TechDetect flag. This uses Wapalizer-style signatures to identify frameworks, CMS platforms, and server software. I specifically flag anything running WordPress, Jenkins, Tomcat, Spring Boot, PHPMyAdmin, or Grafana. These have well-known attack surfaces. I also pay close attention to 403 responses. A 403 means something is there but access controlled. That is often more interesting than a 404. An admin panel returning 403 is a target for authentication bypass testing. I check common paths to server info.env files, WordPress user enumeration endpoints. You would be surprised how often .env files are publicly accessible with database credentials inside. Now here is what separates professional recon from amateur hour organization. I dump everything into structured JSON and CSV files. Every finding gets a timestamp. I group hosts by IP address to identify shared hosting, if 5 subdomains point to the same IP. Compromising one might give you access to all 5. I generate a summary report with statistics, how many subdomains found, how many resolved, what technologies were detected, and which hosts are high-priority targets. This report becomes the input for the next phase. When I open Burp Suite tomorrow, I am pointing it at specific high-value targets, not clicking around randomly. Let me cover the mistakes that burn people. Number 1, Scope Creep. You find a subdomain that resolves to a third-party cloud provider. The subdomain belongs to your client, but the infrastructure does not. Testing it without the hosting provider's authorization is illegal. Always cross-reference IPs against your authorized scope. Number 2, Forgetting IPv6. Most Recon scripts only check a records. Add Quad A record lookups or you miss IPv6 only hosts. Number 3, Data staleness. DNS changes constantly. Timestamp everything and re-verify before acting on findings from earlier in the engagement. That is the complete Recon workflow. Passive first, DNS second, fingerprinting third, organized reporting throughout. Tomorrow on day 8, we pick up Burp Suite and start interacting with these targets directly. The Recon data from today tells us exactly where to look. If you are following along with this challenge, drop a comment with how many subdomains you found on your practice target. Subscribe if you want to catch day 8. See you tomorrow.